What have you seen from your guys these first few weeks of practice and how things have been going?
Yeah, a lot of talent, a lot of competitiveness, to be honest with you. I think the guys, a lot of improvement. When you look at our room, it's really made up of guys that have transferred in, guys that are coming back, a lot of them coming back, and then, some of the freshmen that are coming in. So when you look at it, though, the majority of the room is very experienced. And I think that's something that we haven't been able to talk about a lot in our room over the last couple of years. And so, and it's unique because all that experience, some of that experience is coming from other places, and some of that experience is just from, obviously coming back from last year. So there's a lot of connectivity in that room and a really good relationships because those guys respect each other because they know what they have done. And it's been pretty neat.
Hey, Mike, I know last year was probably a lot crazy for you with, moving into the interim OC role. Now that you're back in the wide receiver coaching role only, what did you kind of learn from that experience last year, and just what has it been like kind of getting back to, I guess, normal for you this year?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the biggest thing that I learned is you have to be around these guys on a daily basis and allow them to be, really be prepared to get them prepared, if that makes sense. And I think when you're doing multiple things, you just run out of time of being able to really focus in on one thing. And so I've really enjoyed being back in that room with these guys and being around them all day, and the text messages and the notes and the meetings and answering the calls and doing all those kind of things have been refreshing for me to just kind of reminder of how bad these guys, how much these guys really need you 24/7 to continue to grow in their career. And we've had a lot of fun over the last 3 weeks. And like I said, that room is very mature. I think if you want to talk about a word, 2 words in that room that I could describe it as is experienced and very mature. And so it's been nice to walk in that room with these guys who are in there and respecting each other. And there's that competition of, we've got to handle our business, and they got to be locked in and doing things the right way. And so I think that's allowed these guys to say text message and really hit you up and be able to meet a little bit more when they can, so they can get an advantage in that room. And so it's been really nice to do that.
So many of your guys last year were freshmen, and now they've all of your guys, I guess, but about two or three have been in the program for multiple years. Yep. How much different and more comfortable is it for you and those guys to, just have a year with you under your belt? How does that change your coaching style at all, or what's different about it?
Well, I think the biggest thing is everybody wants to use the word comfortable because, you've been around here. I think the biggest thing these guys have learned now since they've been here is they understand what it takes. They've been around. They know what the meetings are supposed to be like. They know what we demand in practice. They know what we're demanding, in that room. And so they understand how much it takes now to be obviously a big-time wideout in the SEC, a big-time SEC program here at South Carolina. So that's we haven't had to introduce those things and talk about those things as much as now they know and have experienced that stuff, and they know what they have to do. And like I said earlier, it's created maturity where guys are in that room, nobody's messing around, nobody's goofing around, they're all paying attention, they're all wanting to learn, they're all wanting to get better. And competition also, when you have guys that have experience that now you're going to have to compete against, that is different than competing against people that haven't done it yet. And so I think when you look at that, now these guys are respecting each other in that room, and they're starting to really grow up from that standpoint.
What were you looking for when you were evaluating the wide receivers in the transfer portal?
Yeah, we wanted to make sure experience was the big key. We wanted to make sure that we had guys that could come in this room that have played this game at the high level and have produced and have had a lot of production, have played in big-time games. I think Coach has mentioned it already about just, I don't know if you used the word lack of leadership, but just not a lot of people stepping up. And I think it all, we all kind of relate it to just being young. It's hard for young guys that are trying to get so acclimated to, being a freshman or being a sophomore still trying to have that role and yet still trying to perform at a high level and in a big time environment, it takes time for people to really start voicing their opinion. And so when you've done it, I think leadership also is another key factor that we were looking at on top of the experience. And so, and I'm real pleased with the guys that we've brought in, and it's exactly what we were looking for. And we also wanted to make sure we got guys that wanted to be at South Carolina. That just wasn't out there shopping around for everything. They really had a reason of where they wanted to go and why they wanted to go there, and obviously they wanted to be here at South Carolina. So all those things, we checked the boxes on all those.
Probably a long answer to this question, but what are you hoping to see out of Nick? Like, what's sort of the, I guess, game plan for him and development and getting ready for this last season here?
Well, you're never done until you retire, right? And so I just keep challenging him every day. I think you can see his growth. We all see his growth. You guys can see his growth out there. He's a completely different person right now, is mentally and physically. When you go out and watch him just warm up or watch him run around and run routes, you're looking at a pretty pristine, route runner, and he looks like a wideout. And so sometimes that you use the word comfortable. Once you get those things, you can start getting comfortable. Well, that's not the case. And so now it's just for him to just continue to learn the game and to be able to slow the game down, and obviously learn this new offense, but at the same time just continue to gain all the knowledge that he can of how corners play, how defenses disguise things and how they move around and the leverages for routes, and understanding all the little things that go in, that go included in running routes and running concepts. And so that's what we're really working on right now, and all of it's to slow the game down and help him play a lot faster.
With Nitro Tugle, you kind of mentioned the experience part from the transfer portal. What do you kind of like about him and what you've seen from him so far?
Yeah, usually when you're experienced and you've done things at a high level, you have a lot of confidence. And when you have a lot of confidence, you play really fast. You have a little swag to you. You have some patience in your route running. And he's brought all that to our room because of his experience. And so real pleased with where he's at. And he's explosive. He's smart. He's tough as all get out. He loves football. He loves being here at South Carolina. And so he's continued to get better every day. The more and more he's just become more acclimated here. And real pleased with where he's at.
I think a couple weeks ago you got an extension to stay another year. How many calls, I guess, were coming after last season? I imagine there was interest, whether from other colleges or the NFL.
Yeah, I won't get too much into those details, but we had a fair share, and as I've mentioned to you guys a long time ago when I first came here, we love South Carolina. I've been around South Carolina for a while, and we've really enjoyed it, but we'll keep those between Coach Beamer and I.
Wanted to ask you about Stone Furrey. What do you like about him as a wide receiver? And I know you've been coaching him all his life, but
Right.
What's it like coaching him now in a place like this at this level?
It was actually I was just talking about this the other day. And I'm not saying this just to say it because it's real, but first of all, I'm proud of him. Right? I mean, I'm his dad. It's pretty cool for your son to be playing in a program like this, which, the only thing I wanted for Stone was to go play somewhere where he would be treated the right way, where it was in a culture that was built by a head coach that you guys know I believe in 1,000% with what Coach Beamer does here at South Carolina. And the only thing I'll share with you is Coach said, "What do you think about Stone coming here?" And my answer to him was, I just want him to play for you, and to be around it. So I'm proud of him and happy for him to be here and be in this culture and be in this locker room around a bunch of great young men down there. But I was telling somebody the other day, it's no different than Maisio Bennett or Nick Harbor or Donovan Murph or Nitro Tugle, Jaden Gibson, who's here. Like, there's no different. They're all the same. And I'm just as passionate about all those guys out there on that field and their success and their development and their growth that I am of Stone. But it is pretty cool when you look over and see your son running around with the South Carolina jersey on and making some plays here and there in practice when he gets an opportunity. So it's a pretty cool moment.
With some of those guys heading into year 2 in the program, Malik Clark and Jordan Goodron, what's the next step for them, and how would you evaluate their progress?
Yeah, it's to take over. That's all it is now. We're looking for guys in that room, and including Nick, all the way down to the incoming freshmen. Like your job here, you don't wait around no more in college, right? It's time to grow up and take ownership of your career. And so I think the next big step for 7 and 6 is for Jordan Gidron and Donovan Murph, really included in that with Malik Clark, is to take ownership of your career, take ownership of your skill set, and take over a role in this program that helps us win. And you know what you're supposed to be doing. You know where the CAF is at. You know where study hall is at. There's no excuse no more of acclimation. Now it's time to produce and develop in those things that their strengths. And so every one of them understand that, and they've had a good spring so far and looking to continue. I think these next 2 weeks will be a big tell for those guys in that room.
I'm sure last year was probably really tough on a guy like Maisio, who I know there's one football, but really didn't get to have a ton of production last year. Why do you feel like that was, and how has he looked so far this spring?
I'm real proud of him. He's looked great. He's worked his tail off. He's learned a lot. I've learned a lot through that whole situation last year, just of trying to find the right people to help us, in games and win games, and maybe it'd be a little bit more explosive or whatever it is from a skill set standpoint. But you got to go back to the passion, the love, the consistency, what this place means to a young man, and that's Maisio Bennett, right? And so we've learned a lot from that situation, and we've had great conversations since last year. He's grown up a lot, and he's had a heck of a spring. I think he's probably having one of the best springs right now out of the guys in our room, just from a consistent standpoint, and he's made it really, really important. So really, really been impressed with him this spring.
When Coach Browse was in here a couple weeks ago, he alluded to maybe being upwards of 4 receivers on the field at once, and maybe being able to count on 8 guys from your group.
Yep.
I'm sure that's been discussed amongst the guys in the group. How exciting is that for them? How exciting is it for you to know that there could be a lot of guys who are getting some run?
Well, it makes it easier for me because then I don't have to worry about playing, 2 or 3 guys at one time. We could maybe get to the 4 or 5. But, whatever it is, when Coach Browse tells us to put 3 in, we'll put 3 in, put 4, put 4 in, we'll put 4 in. I'll leave all that stuff to him. But the guys are really excited. They respect each other in that room because they understand what they're going against every day. And that makes that room a lot more competitive. It makes it more demanding. And it makes you better as a player. And so we'll have the opportunity to get to all that stuff later. But I'm just proud of those guys right now, the way they're working. And like I said earlier, the experience and the maturity in that room. Appreciate it, guys.